beneath the sky ablaze with the aurora's dance, where the northern winds howl with voices of the ancient past, the land of the Norse trembles with secrets older than the frost-covered peaks. The crackle of fire pits and the rhythmic chants of skalds weave a tapestry of awe and dread that echoes through the long nights. What stirs in these icy realms? A power greater than the storm's fury. This is no tale of distant heroes or forgotten kings. It is the heartbeat of your ancestors, a saga born from the snow and the stars, guarded by gods whose eyes pierce the veil of time. The air grows thick with the scent of pine and iron as warriors gather, their faces etched with reverence, not fear. Their axes are raised not for battle alone, but to honor a destiny, a force they believe they are destined to serve or defy. This is not the polished myth of golden halls and endless feasts. This is something raw, a force of creation and destruction, woven into the fabric of the world itself. What could drive a people to forge their lives around such a tale, to face the end of all things with open eyes? To understand, we must journey into the frozen heart of the Norse soul, where the gods' wisdom and wrath first took shape. The sound of ravens' wings cuts through the silence, a harbinger of truths yet untold, as the firelight flickers across rune-carved stones. Elders speak in hushed tones, their voices trembling with the weight of prophecy. The end draws near, and with it, our glory. This is no mere story. It is a call to destiny, a challenge to stand against the twilight. Lanterns sway as the gathered prepare, their shields glinting with purpose prayers, weapons and songs lifted to the heavens. To uncover this saga, we delve into the icy abyss of time, where Odin's gaze and Thor's might first cast their shadows. In the dim twilight of prehistory, long before the cross adorned the halls of Scandinavia or the quill recorded its tales, the Norse peoples gazed upon their rugged land with a reverence that trembled with awe. The tribes of the fjords, the warriors of the icy plains, the settlers of the Baltic shores. Their world was one where the earth itself pulsed with life, a sacred tapestry woven from the snow-laden peaks, the whispering forests, and the thundering seas. To them the land was not mere soil or stone, but a living entity, a deity of unyielding power, its every gust of wind a message, its every crack of ice a judgment, its every raven's cry a sign from the divine. The northern sky, streaked with the aurora's ethereal glow, was their celestial temple, a vault where the gods walked, their footsteps echoing in the hearts of men. They believed the world was born of chaos, shaped by forces beyond comprehension, and the myths they crafted were not mere stories, but the very breath of their existence, sung by skalds around flickering hearths as the wind howled outside. Archaeological whispers bear testament to these beliefs. Rune stones etched with serpentine forms and hammer-like symbols, unearthed from burial mounds in Sweden, dating back to 200 BCE, speak of a people who saw the divine in the natural world. Petroglyphs along the Norwegian coast depict warriors alongside what scholars interpret as Thor's hammer. Mjolnir, its shape a ward against evil, its power a promise of protection. The earliest oral traditions, later captured by the 13th century Icelandic historian Snorri Sturluson in his prose Edda, echo these ancient fears and hopes. Recounting the creation of the world from the corpse of the giant Amir, a tale of blood and ice that mirrors the harsh realities of their environment. Yet, beneath this mythic framework lies an older lore, one where the gods Odin, Thor, Freya were not distant rulers, but kin to the land, their presence felt in every storm, every hunt, every birth. Excavations in Denmark have revealed offerings, bronze axes, amber beads, sacrificed horses, buried in bogs, likely cast to appease these deities, a ritualistic dialogue with the unseen that shaped their daily lives. This animistic worldview governed their existence with an iron hand. Farmers offered prayers to Freyr, god of the harvest, scattering grain into the soil at spring's first thaw, their voices rising with the lark's song. Warriors invoked Tyr, the one-handed god of war, before battle, their swords anointed with blood from a boar's throat, the sacrifice a bond with the divine. The raven, sacred to Odin, was watched with bated breath, its flight a prophecy of victory or doom, its call a summons to the Allfather's wisdom. When a blizzard buried a village or a hunt ended in empty hands, the blame fell not on chance, but on the gods' displeasure, their moods as fickle as the weather. The myths of Odin's quest for knowledge, hanging 9 days on Yggdrasil the world tree, and Thor's battles with giants, his hammer flashing like lightning, were born from these struggles, a reflection of a people wrestling with a world both bountiful and brutal. Elders taught children to read the signs, the rustle of leaves, the flight of birds, as if the land itself spoke, its voice a guide through the frozen wilderness. The rhythm of their lives revolved around this reverence, a cycle of ritual and survival etched into the seasons. Villages held blot ceremonies at Yule, slaughtering cattle whose blood stained the snow, their meat shared in feasts to honor the gods, their spirits believed to linger in the smoke that rose to Asgard. Children were named under open skies, their first cries offered to the wind, a pledge to the divine order. The land was their provider, their judge, their eternal companion, and the gods were its guardians, their stories a map to navigate life's trials. A warrior who returned from a raid might carve a rune of thanks on a standing stone, while one who fell would be buried with his axe, a companion for the journey to Valhalla. These markers, scattered across Scandinavia, suggest a society living in constant communion with the divine, their rituals a bridge between the human and the celestial. With the arrival of Christianity in the 10th century, these pagan beliefs did not vanish, but transformed, blending with the new faith like rivers merging into the sea. Missionaries brought the cross to the longhouses, their sermons clashing with the old ways as they built churches over sacred groves. The gods were rechristened as demons or saints. Odin's wisdom became the devil's cunning. Thor's hammer, a symbol of pagan stubbornness, it whispered in secret. Their names lingered. Monks recorded tales of Ragnarok, the prophesied end, in manuscripts like the Poetic Edda, blending biblical apocalypse with Nordic doom, casting it as a warning against pride rather than a destined cycle. This fusion created a unique tapestry of belief, half pagan hope, half Christian dread. Warriors spoke of Valhalla in hushed tones, their prayers now to Christ, but their shields still bearing Mjolnir, a dual faith that mirrored their dual world. A 12th century chronicle from a Norwegian monastery describes a monk's vision of Odin riding Sleipnir, an 8-legged steed, a sign of the old god's resistance, its ink-stained pages a bridge between eras. Yet from this reverence grew a darker thread, as trade and conquest brought tales from distant lands. The Byzantine chronicler Procopius, writing in 550 CE, noted the fierce northern tribes, their gods mirroring tales of Slavic storm deities, their battles with giants echoing eastern myths. Merchants from the Rus brought stories of water spirits, their descriptions blending with Norse lore to enrich the pantheon. These narratives interwove, adding depth to Odin's cunning, Thor's strength, and the looming shadow of Ragnarok eyes that saw all fates, a hammer that shattered mountains, a twilight that consumed the gods. The saga became a cultural crossroads, its images growing in the minds of warriors as they ventured beyond the fjords. Their songs carried on ships that sailed to Constantinople and beyond. This belief in a living world had a ritualistic edge, a dance with the divine that defined their days. The Norse practiced seer, a form of magic led by Volda seeresses who communed with the gods, their chants rising in smoke-filled huts, their visions guiding kings. If a village survived a harsh winter, they'd raise a horg, a stone altar, in thanks, its surface stained with offerings of mead. These altars, found in Sweden's forests, suggest a society living in constant negotiation with the unseen, their rituals a plea for favor. The gods, in this context, were both protectors and destroyers, their dual nature reflecting the land's beauty and peril. A farmer might bless his plow with a drop of blood, a right to ensure Freyr's bounty, while a jarl facing a rival would invoke Odin's wisdom, his ravens watching from the trees. As centuries passed, the Norse mythos deepened, its roots spreading like the branches of Yggdrasil. The skald Egil Skallagrimsson, in his 10th century verses, praised Thor's might, his words preserving the oral tradition in a world of steel and saga. This blending of fact and fable set the stage for a mythology that would define a people, a saga of wisdom and war awaiting its final chapter. The ancient roots, nurtured by pagan awe and Christian tension, began to unfold a tale of gods and men, a narrative poised on the brink of Ragnarok, where the end would reveal the true measure of their souls. In the frost-bound villages of the Norse lands, where the long nights stretched like shadows across the snow, the earth and sky were not silent spectators, but active forces, their moods shaping the fate of every soul. The people believed that the gods' will could be summoned not merely by prayer or sacrifice, but by the hidden marks of birth, the ominous signs of nature, or the weight of human transgression. The curse that wove through their saga, a thread linking the divine to the mortal, began not with the gods' wrath alone, but with those touched by their unseen hand individuals, whose lives invited the awakening of destiny or doom. To be marked by the heavens or the earth was to carry a burden both glorious and terrible, a spark that could ignite the fires of Ragnarok or bind the world to its twilight. The air hung with the scent of pine smoke and iron as families watched the skies, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that the gods' gaze could fall upon any cradle or battlefield. The most feared omen was the raven-born child, a soul ushered into the world under the shadow of Odin's messengers. Born during a storm when the ravens circled overhead, their black wings cutting through the gale like blades, such a child was said to bear the Allfather's mark. Midwives, their hands chilled by the icy air of birthing huts, noted strange signs' eyes that gleamed with an uncanny depth. A cry that mimicked the raven's harsh call, skin marked with a faint, rune-like pattern that faded with the dawn. These infants were watched with a mixture of awe and dread, for the old tales claimed they were destined to serve Odin, their lives a bridge to his wisdom or a harbinger of his trials. If the mother died in childbirth, her last breath stolen by the wind, the child was deemed an Odin's heir, fated to seek knowledge at great cost or to herald the end. Villages held rituals to temper this bond, sprinkling the newborn with mead from a horn, burning juniper to cleanse the air of divine intent. But the mark lingered, a silent pulse in the family's joy. A raven born who fell in battle, unclaimed by Valhalla, was believed to rise as a draugr, their soul fueling the chaos of Ragnarok, their spirit a whisper in the wind that chilled the living. Another mark came from the thunder-blessed, those born as Thor's hammer struck the sky. In Norse lore passed down through generations of skalds, reciting verses by the glow of seal oil lamps. A child born during a thunderstorm, when lightning split the heavens and thunder rolled like Mjolnir's clash, was touched by the god of strength. Fishermen told tales of such children, gifted with a might that bent iron, a resilience that weathered storms, yet cursed with a temper that mirrored the tempest. If they died dishonorably, struck down by cowardice or treachery, the community feared their spirit would join the giants, amplifying the forces of destruction in the final battle. Parents of thunder-blessed children often raised them near forges, teaching them the craft of the hammer. But Thor's call was relentless, a rumble that echoed in their dreams. One saga, carved into a runestone in 900 CE Sweden, tells of Bjorn, a thunder-blessed son who felled a bear with a single blow, only to die fleeing a raid. His name became a caution, etched in warning. Bjorn's thunder calls the end. Villages blamed him for storms that shattered longhouses, their roofs torn by winds seen as his restless spirit. Sins, too, could awaken the curse, transforming a life of honor into a beacon for the god's judgment. A warrior who broke an oath spilling blood in a sacred grove, stealing from a hoard, or betraying a kin invited the wrath of the Aesir, their soul tainted by hubris. The clan of such a warrior lived under a cloud, their every hunt failing, their shields splintering in battle, as if the gods turned their backs. If the warrior died unatoned, his spirit was thought to wander as a draugr, bound to serve the forces of chaos until Ragnarok cleansed the world. In 1100s Norway, a jarl named Sigurd the Proud was accused of this sin after slaying a rival during a blot, his laughter echoing over the altar. His warband vanished in a blizzard, and locals swore the ground shook where his body fell, birthing a spectral host that haunted the fjords. Sigurd's name became a curse, uttered only in shadows, and his lineage bore the stigma. Their every deed watched for signs of divine retribution. Rituals to avert this fate were intricate, woven into the fabric of birth and honor like threads in a warrior's cloak. Midwives wrapped raven-born infants in wool dyed with woad, chanting prayers to Frigg to shield the child from Odin's gaze, their voices rising above the storm's roar. Thunder-blessed children were given amulets of iron, forged under a lightning strike by village smiths, whose hammers rang like thunder, to be worn until their coming-of-age rite, when they faced a trial of strength lifting a stone, blessed by Thor. Warriors atoned with offerings, casting swords into lakes during solstices, singing hymns that blended seer chants with Christian pleas, their clans standing silent as the metal sank. Yet failure bred suspicion, a poison that seeped through the community like frost through a crack. A child who spoke in riddles, a warrior who prospered too well, was watched with narrowed eyes, their every misstep spilling mead on a hoard. Dreaming of the void was seen as a sign of the curse stirring, awakening the god's will. This fear shaped village life, turning celebrations into vigils and triumphs into shadowed affairs. Raven-born children were often revered yet isolated, their playmates kept at a distance by cautious parents, their families honored unless the ritual failed to sever the divine bond. Thunder-blessed heirs became local legends, their strength the double-edged sword heroes who saved villages one day, omens blamed for lost battles the next. The community's vigilance turned inward. Every death and dishonor, a potential Draugr birth. Every storm, a judgment on hidden sins. A widow might accuse her husband's warband of oath-breaking, sparking feuds that lasted generations, clans divided by lines drawn in the snow. These tensions, born of pride and fear, wove the Norse saga into the fabric of daily existence. A curse that began with a cry or a thunderclap, waiting to unleash its destiny upon the world. As the curse took hold, stories multiplied, each a cautionary tale etched into the collective memory. In 1000's Iceland, a raven-born girl named Astrid grew up under Odin's shadow, her wisdom guiding her village through famine. Yet her death in a feud marked her as a Draugr, her spirit blamed for a winter that buried the settlement. Her tale became a ballad, sung in minor keys by the fire, a reminder that the curse could awaken in the wisest hearts. Similarly, in coastal Denmark, a thunder-blessed blacksmith forged a hammer that never broke. But his sin of pride refusing a sacrifice brought a storm that sank his kin's ships. His forge stood abandoned, a haunted shell where villagers left iron as penance, fearing his spirit stirred the giants. These omens and sins were not mere superstitions. They were the lifeblood of a culture teetering on the edge of the divine. Archaeological finds amulets buried in graves. Runes scratched on hearths attest to the depth of this belief, a desperate bid to ward off the awakening. The curse, once stirred, spread like ripples from a stone cast into a lake, touching families, clans, entire regions. A marked child's laughter might echo with the raven's caw. A sinner's glance might chill like the void's cold embrace. The community responded with ever more elaborate rites processions to sacred oaks where blood was spilled, dances under the aurora to bind the spirits, yet the fear persisted, a constant undercurrent. The curse was not abstract. It was intimate, a shadow in the cradle, a rumble in the sky, awakening slowly but inexorably. In time, these beliefs fused with incoming influences, Celtic tales from the west, Slavic whispers from the east enriching the curse's lore. A Scottish Highlander's account from 1200 CE speaks of a thunder-cursed clan, their births tied to omens that summoned storm gods, their rituals mirroring Norse ones, but infused with Druidic chants. This cross-pollination made the curse universal, a shared dread among northern folk, its awakening a specter that bound them in mutual vigilance. The land, vast and unforgiving, became the great stage, its curses awakening in the hearts of all who dared its embrace, pulling them toward an inevitable confrontation with the god's will. But the true terror awakens not in life's first breath, but in its final clash, when the marked soul joins the march to Ragnarok, unleashing a destiny that will consume the world. The curse of the Norse gods did not wait for the twilight of Ragnarok to cast its shadow. It haunted the living, a presence woven into the fabric of daily existence across the frost-rimed lands of Scandinavia. In the smoky longhouses of Norway, the wind swept, villages of Iceland, and the rugged shores of Denmark. It was not a distant prophecy, but a force felt in the clang of a hammer. The sudden silence of a raven ceased flight, the shiver that gripped a warrior as he faced the storm. The living shadow was no ethereal specter, but a power channeled through those marked by the gods' will-raven-born seers, thunder-blessed warriors, even the landbound who dared defy the divine order. The air carried the scent of burning pine and the tongue of iron, a constant reminder that the god's presence could awaken in any soul, its tendrils reaching through the marked to shape the world above. Its primary power was a draining of vitality, a subtle siphon that mirrored the harshness of the northern winters. pulling life from the land as surely as the frost claimed the fields. A raven-born child born under Odin's watchful eye might grow wise beyond their years, their riddles, solving disputes with uncanny insight, yet tire inexplicably as the night deepened, their energy drawn as if the Allfather called it back to his hall. Warriors reported a spirit-weary malaise that struck without warning, shields heavy in battle one day, arms trembling the next, their strength fading as if the gods reclaimed their gift. This was no natural exhaustion. It was believed Odin's marked, through their connection to the divine, drew life to fuel his endless quest for knowledge, a parasitic pull that left men gaunt and hollow-eyed. A 12th century chronicle from Uppsala, penned by a monk who tended the sick, describes a seer named Hilda, who withered after foretelling a raid success, her skin paling to match the snow, her breath shallow as the ravens gathered. Villagers blamed her raven-born mark, claiming Odin reclaimed her wisdom through her hands, her every vision a summons to the void. This draining extended to the harvest, a blight that turned the land's bounty into a mirror of the gods' caprice. Fields tended by families of cursed warriors, often failed barley stalks, yellowed under a sky that seemed to mock their labor. Livestock sickened with coughs that echoed the thunder's rumble, their wool matted with frost, as if touched by Jotunheim's chill. A saga from 1300s Iceland tells of a village where, after a thunder-blessed warrior's sin of oath-breaking, the rye withered and goats gave blood-tinged milk, their bleeding a lament that carried across the glaciers. The gods, they said, tied the land to their will, their power reaching beyond Asgard to strangle the earth's life. To combat this, villagers burned juniper at the field's edge, its smoke rising like a prayer, chanting seer verses to appease the Asir, though success was rare and fleeting. The living shadow became a scapegoat for nature's cruelty blizzards that buried homes, raids that left granaries empty, failed hunts that left bellies hollow-eyed at the gods' invisible hands, their presence a specter that haunted every plow and spear. Its most fantastical power emerged in moments of divine communion, a manifestation that blurred the line between mortal and myth, a testament to the gods' dominion over the marked. On nights of the full moon or solstice, when the aurora pulsed with a light that seemed to bridge the worlds, those touched by the curse were said to host the god's spirit. Seers spoke of dreams where they walked with Odin in Valhalla, their feet treading golden halls, waking to find their huts filled with raven feathers, their hands stained with ink-like traces. A 14th century account from a Swedish warband recorded in a runestone. Runes describes their thunder-blessed leader, a man named Gunnar, standing amid a storm, as lightning seemed to dance from his hammer, his voice booming like Thor's own, only to fade as the dawn broke. These spectral gatherings, believed to occur at sacred groves, where the winds sang with ghostly voices, or stone circles where the earth hummed, were battles of will, the marked wrestling with the divine pull to serve or resist. The outcome, they said, shaped the clan's fate: prosperity if the human spirit prevailed, ruin if the gods will dominate it, its victory marked by broken oaths and silent hearths. Elders would gather on these nights, their faces lit by bonfires, reciting Galdr to guide the marked back from the divine, their chants a fragile shield against Asgard's claim. Protection against this living shadow was a way of life, a tapestry of rituals woven into the fabric of Norse survival. Iron, a ward against spirits, was forged into amulets worn close to the heart, its weight a comfort against the gods' gaze. And rowan branches, hung above doorways, were said to repel the Draugr's touch. Shields were painted with Mjolnir, its symbol a barrier against the divine drain, while longhouses bore carvings of Yggdrasil, its branches a map to navigate the spiritual realm. On solstice nights, villages lit blot fires along the ridges, their flames leaping like guardians against the gods' reach, the smoke carrying prayers to the Aesir and Vanir. These rituals, passed from elder to child with the solemnity of a blood oath, were a dance with fate, a constant negotiation with the unseen, each gesture a plea to temper the living shadow's power. Yet this vigilance thrived on suspicion, a poison that seeped through the community like ice through a shield wall. A seer's envy, a warrior's boastful word, could mark them as God-touched, their every action scrutinized by kin whose eyes gleamed with mistrust. When a longhouse burned in 1350s Norway, its timbers reduced to ash, survivors accused a raven-born woman of summoning Odin's fire, leading to her exile to a frozen islet where her cries were lost to the wind. This paranoia fueled the saga, each tale adding to the god's power, a force born not just from the divine, but from the human heart's darkest fears. A widow might blame a rival for her husband's spirit-weary death, her accusations sparking feuds that divided clans, their once shared mead now poured in silence. The living shadow became a mirror, reflecting the community's struggles, its presence a constant reminder that the god's curse could awaken in any soul, its influence reaching through the marked to shape the world above. As the curse's manifestations grew, so did the stories that bound the community in shared awe and dread. In 1200s Iceland, a raven-born youth named Leif was said to drain the vigor of his village's council, their wisdom fading as his foresight waxed, his shadow stretching like a raven's wing across the hall. A clan drove him out, earning his staff as an offering, yet storms followed, claiming 2 ships. His tale became a warning, sung in minor keys by the fire, a reminder of the living shadow's power. Similarly, in coastal Sweden, a thunder-blessed woman named Sigrid wielded a hammer that shattered stone, but her sin of pride, refusing a blot, brought a tempest that flooded her kin's fields. They bound her wrists with iron and cast her into a cave, a sacrifice to appease Thor, though the rain ceased only after her silence. These accounts, preserved in oral traditions and later scratched into wooden tablets, painted a picture of a curse that thrived on the living, its power a testament to the god's unyielding will. The living shadow's reach extended to the rhythms of life, turning routine into a battleground of faith. A seer might pause at their runes, feeling a pull not of mind but of spirit, a whisper from Valhalla that urged them to see beyond. A warrior might wake from dreams of clashing with giants, their beds strewn with frost that defied the hearth's warmth. The community responded with ever more elaborate defenses, blessing every weapon with mead mixed with ash, weaving charms from rowan into clothing, holding vigils where the marked were watched through the night, their breaths counted like storm gusts. Yet the fear persisted, a constant undercurrent, for the living shadow was not a foe to be slain, but a presence to be endured, its power growing with each tale, each suspicion, each life it touched. The land, vast and unforgiving, seemed to listen, its winds whistling through the pines like fingers grasping for the marked, pulling them toward an awakening that would herald the god's final judgment. Yet death unshackles this shadow, unleashing a destiny beyond imagination, when the marked soul marched to Ragnarok, joining the clash that will consume the world. Death, in the frost-bound realms of the Norse, where the aurora painted the sky with ghostly hues, was no final silence. It was a gateway, a threshold where the soul lingered, and for those marked by the god's curse, a transformation into a terror that chilled the blood of entire clans. The line between life and the divine blurred beneath the icy winds, turning a warrior's end into a haunting that echoed from the fjords to the snow-draped plains, a specter born of ash and prophecy. The gods did not release their own easily, their will holding fast to those cursed by their touch, pulling them back to rise again as harbingers of Ragnarok's chaos. The air grew heavy with the scent of charred wood and the tang of iron as villages braced for the unquiet, awakening their hearths dimmed by the shadow of the divine, their prayers rising like smoke from the sacred groves. A good death was a rare blessing in this harsh world, falling in battle shield in hand with Valkyries, wings brushing the soul to Valhalla, or passing in old age with kin's hands clasped in farewell, was a shield against this fate, a rite that guided the spirit to the gods' halls. But a bad death shattered that shield, its dishonor or despair a beacon for the divine wrath. Suicide, a sin against the Aesir, and a defiance of fate, was the most feared. A warrior lost to despair, his mind broken by the endless winter nights, casting himself onto the ice to vanish into the void, was denied entry to the afterlife, his body left unburied under the snow. In 1100's Greenland, a man named Thorkel, overwhelmed by the loss of his longhouse to a fire, ended his life in a frozen fjord. Within weeks, travelers reported a spectral figure on the ice, its form dragging sleds into the dark, its moans lost to the wind. The clan carved his name into a warning rune, its edges worn by frost, a silent plea to avoid his fate. Yet the gods' revenge lingered, claiming more with each passing storm. Murdered warriors, their lives stolen by a kin's blade in the heat of a feud or the cold calculation of ambition, also rose from the earth, their vengeance fueling a return that turned the land red with rage. A 13th century saga from the Norwegian coast recounts a warrior named Olaf, slain by his brother over a disputed inheritance, his body tossed into a bog to rot. His ghost was seen wielding a spectral axe, its edge cleaving through trees near his burial site, his cries echoing like Thor's thunder, a sound that haunted the survivor's dreams for seasons. Clans feared such deaths, their graveyards guarded by armed watchmen who muttered Galder, their spears glinting in the moonlight, a fragile barrier against the gods' claim. Accidental deaths amplified the curse further. A hunter caught in a bear trap, his struggles silenced by the cold. A mother swept away by an avalanche, her final shout swallowed by the snow died without rites, their souls lingering in the liminal space between worlds, vulnerable to the divine pull. Death under a god-marked's curse spread the taint like a blizzard, infecting others with its dark legacy. A raven-born seer's dying breath, gasped out in a vision of doom, or a thunder-blessed warrior's final curse as his hammer shattered in defeat, carried the curse to those nearby, their souls marked by proximity. In 1400s, Iceland, a storm claimed 5 warriors from a single steading their bodies found frozen in a circle. The clan swore the aurora pulsed with unnatural light that night, and livestock sickened their wool, matted with frost, as if touched by hell's realm. This belief turned every loss into a potential awakening, the land a crucible where human souls were reshaped into the gods' instruments. Elders would gather the families, their voices low as they recounted the signs, unexplained winds, the sudden flight of ravens each, detail a thread in the tapestry of dread that enveloped the north. The haunting began with the family, the most intimate victims of the unquiet awakening. Widows reported dreams of their husbands rising from the snow, their faces distorted, axes where hands should be, their voices a growl of regret and rage. Children woke gasping, feeling a weight on their chests as if the gods pressed down, their vitality draining with each night's terror, their small hands clutching at furs, damp with cold sweat. A 15th century account from the Faroe Islands describes a mother named Freya, who after her thunder-blessed son died in a duel, saw his shadow in the storm. Each dusk her health fading nightly, her skin taking on the pallor of a frozen corpse. The god-marked returned not with honor, but with a hunger that sapped life. Their presence a cold wind that left families shivering in their beds, their prayers unanswered by the Aesir above. The community watched these signs, their sympathy tinged with fear, knowing the curse could spread beyond the hearth. Beyond the home, the clan felt the blight, a contagion that turned prosperity into ruin. Sickness spread like a frost coughs that mimicked the wind's howl, pallor that matched the ice, a gradual wasting that defied the healer's herbs. In 1600 Sweden, a plague followed the bad death of a warrior who had broken an oath, the villagers blaming his Draugr soul for summoning a spectral host, their longhouse doors rattling as if struck by unseen fists. The land suffered 2 rains failed, turning fields to ice. Game fled the traps, leaving the forest silent, as if the gods reclaimed their due with a jealous hand. This chaos turned the market's grave into a focal point, their unrest a clan's threat that demanded action, the community's survival hanging by a thread as the unquiet awakening spread its reach. Vigils marked the 9 nights after death, a Norse tradition where the soul wandered the known world, a sacred vigil for the honored, but a period of immense danger for the cursed. Mirrors were covered with hides to shield the spirit from its own reflection, fires stoked to warm the deceased's path, their crackle a reminder of life's end. But for the god-marked, these rites failed, their souls lost to the divine pull. Graves were watched by families and warriors, their torches casting long shadows across the mounds. Horses shied from the cursed earth, their hooves digging into the snow. Dogs howled at the unhallowed ground, their barks a warning carried on the wind. A stone placed in the mouth, meant to weigh the spirit down, or a shield laid over the coffin to entangle the rising form, or used to bind the body, yet tales persisted of snow shifting, of spectral axes breaching the surface like roots seeking light. A 17th century account from the Orkneys describes a grave where the ice cracked each night, the villagers fleeing as a shadowy figure emerged, only to retreat with the dawn, a sign that the unquiet awakening was incomplete but imminent. The unquiet awakening turned mourning into a hunt, the god's wrath now a clan's foe. Families whispered of footsteps in the snow leading from the graveyard to their doors, of knocks that echoed like hammer strikes against shields, of shadows that flickered in firelight where no one stood. The community braced for the next phase, their weapons sharpened, their hearts steeled, knowing the god-marked would rise to claim more than memories, their spirits marching toward the prophesied end. The land, vast and unforgiving, seemed to listen, its winds whistling through the pines like fingers grasping for the unquiet dead, pulling them toward a destiny that would herald Ragnarok's fire and ice. The frost-covered lands of the Norse could no longer bear the weight of the unquiet awakenings, their villages trembling under the shadow of the god-marked dead, whose hauntings threatened to unravel the fabric of clan and kin. By the 13th century, panic swept across Scandinavia from the jagged fjords of Norway to the icy plains of Sweden, transforming fear into a fierce resolve that turned the tide against the divine curse. The gods had claimed too many warriors, lost to spectral axes, families withered by blight, livestock felled by unseen storms, and the marked were seen as the harbingers of Ragnarok's chaos. The reckoning began, a clash of ancient ritual and emerging authority, its echoes reverberating through the snow-laden air, a testament to the human spirit's defiance against the divine will. The scent of burning juniper and the clash of steel filled the nights as clans prepared, their hearts heavy with the prophecy of the end, their hands steady with the determination to protect their world. In 1250, a Norwegian steading near Trondheim faced a crisis that would spark the reckoning. After the death of a raven-born seer named Rania, whose final vision foretold doom, before she succumbed to a fever, the village sickened with a wasting plague, their cattle dropped dead, and warriors vanished into blizzards that rolled in like omens. The clan elders, their faces etched with the wisdom of the fjords, gathered under a sky streaked with the aurora, led by a weathered warrior whose voice trembled with urgency. They presented their evidence to the local chieftain, unexplained winds that howled like Odin's ravens, a horse's refusal to pass Ranya's grave, its hooves stamping the snow in terror, the sickly pallor of the afflicted. They begged for an exhumation, seeing it not as sacrilege, but as a sacred duty to end the curse that threatened their survival. The chieftain, bound by tradition yet wary of the Christian missionaries' growing influence, hesitated, his hand resting on a cross carved from bone. Undeterred, the clan acted alone, their spades striking the frozen earth under the midnight sun, their breaths visible in the cold as they defied both gods and men, their resolve aflame in the darkness. Detection relied on nature's wisdom, a ritual passed down through the ages like a sacred rune. A white horse, its purity unblemished by mark or stain, was led over the graves, its instinct a guide through the shadowed burial mounds. In 1285, off the Icelandic coast, a community reeling from the loss of 3 longships sought this rite, the horse guided by a young shield maiden whose courage was deemed a ward against the divine. As it approached the grave of a thunder-blessed warrior named Rolf, dead a month from a dishonorable flight, its instinct took hold. It stopped dead, its hooves digging into the ice, rearing with eyes wide in a terror no human could fathom, but all could feel its whinny cutting through the silence. The clan nodded, their torches casting long dancing shadows, confirming the sign. The pure beast had found the unholy one. This ritual, rooted in the belief that animals sensed the supernatural, spread as panic grew, each village adapting it with local flair. Some added a black stallion for contrast, others a vulva to lead, her staff tapping the frozen ground. The grave marked, the community gathered, their resolve a shield against the fear that gnawed at their souls. Exhumation was a solemn violation, a breach of the sacred that carried the weight of survival. In 1300, a Swedish warband from a village near Uppsala unearthed the coffin of a warrior whose sin of oath-breaking had cursed his final raid, their spades biting into the earth with a rhythm that matched the wind's wail. The lid lifted revealed a body uncorrupted, skin ruddy, as if kissed by life, hair grown long, and wild like a giant's mane, a stench of frost and decay filling the air. Fresh blood pooled in the mouth, a sign the gods fed on the living, its presence a violation of the natural order. The ritual of destruction followed with a gravity that silenced the onlookers. An iron spear, sacred for its strength, was driven through the heart with a force that echoed like thunder, a groan erupting from the corpse as blood sprayed, its warmth a stark contrast to the night's chill. mirroring the Aesir's rage. Decapitation with a battle axe came next, the head severed with a sickening crack, buried apart under a cairn of stones to ensure it could never rejoin the body. Rowan berries stuffed into the maw to silence the spirit's curses, their bitter scent a ward against the divine. Fire was the final purge, a purification that turned the marked into ash and memory. In 1350, an Icelandic clan on the Vatnajökull glacier earned the heart of a marked seer named Astrid, whose bad death had brought blight to the pastures, and a ridge-top pyre that blazed against the aurora's light. The heart cut from the chest with a hunter's knife was taken to a stone circle where the land met the sky, its flames leaping like Odin's own fury, reducing it to fine gray ash that drifted on the wind. The ashes were mixed with mead drawn from a sacred spring, a curative draught carried back to the haunted steads, given to all who had suffered, the wasting sick, the terror-stricken, the weak its sweet bitter taste, a promise of restored vitality. These acts, though condemned by Christian priests who saw them as pagan relics, were sanctioned by chieftains facing uprisings, their authority bending to the will of a terrified people. Reports like that of a 1325 Danish skald who documented a staking with vivid detail, his verses capturing the blood's flow and the corpse's groan, fueled continental fascination, turning the Norse hunt into a tale whispered in halls from Kiev to Cologne. The reckoning clashed with the rising tide of Christianity, a conflict that shaped its legacy. In 1400s Norway, the Church, emboldened by royal decree, investigated these rites, dismissing them as superstition born of ignorance. Yet, warriors still carved Mjolnir into their shields runes of protection. Galder chants whispering prayers to both Christ and Thor, their faith a blend of old and new. A church record from 1450 notes a priestess log describing a spectral host encounter near Bergen, its forms matching Draugr lore, yet the official conclusion labeled it delusion, a refusal to acknowledge the divine's mysteries. This tension left clans caught between worlds, their rituals persisting in secret, their fear undimmed by doctrine. The reckoning restored order, the marked destroyed, but the gods' memory lingered, their wings a constant reminder of the battles fought and the fates sealed. As the hunt spread, stories multiplied, each a thread in the tapestry of the Norse defiance. In 1270s Finland, a village exhumed the thunder-blessed woman, whose grave yielded a body with frostbitten limbs and a mouth filled with ice, it staking a communal rite that drew pilgrims from afar, their tales spreading the saga. In Denmark, a 1360s panic saw a raven-born trader's heart burned, the ashes curing a plague, his name erased from records but etched in memory. These events, preserved in oral histories and later in rune-stone inscriptions, painted a picture of a reckoning born of desperation, a testament to the human will to endure. The clan's strength lay in its unity, their tools spades, spears, fire a defiance of the divine, their songs rising with the smoke to reclaim the land from the gods' grasp. Yet the reckoning was not without cost. Families divided over the hunts, some seeing salvation, others sacrilege, their feuds lingering like frost stains on stone. The church, though sidelined, imposed penance on participants, their confessions filling ledgers with guilt and resolve. The land, vast and unforgiving, seemed to watch, its winds whistling through the pines like fingers grasping for the next marked soul, its silence a promise of future judgment. The gods, though felled in their marked, remained a spirit in the hearts of those who hunted, their saga a mirror of courage and fear, awaiting the next awakening to test their resolve once more. With the ashes cold, what lessons linger in the silence as the land holds its breath for the twilight of Ragnarok? The Norse saga, with its unquiet awakenings and fierce reckonings, has faded into the mists of time, its rituals of spear and pyre supplanted by the hum of modern machinery and the steady march of secular thought. The frost-bound lands of Scandinavia, once alive with the clash of steel and the chants of seer, now stand quiet under the midnight sun, their rune stones weathered by centuries, their fjords navigated by ships that laugh at ancient fears. Yet the echo of Odin's wisdom, Thor's hammer, and the prophesied Ragnarok persists, a whisper carried on the northern winds, a shadow that lingers in the collective soul of those who trace their roots to the icy realms. What were these tales the clans fought to shape, a reflection of divine will or a mirror of human struggle? The land, vast and enduring, seems to hold its breath at 11:07 p.m. Cest, waiting for us to unravel its enduring legacy, its silence a testament to the past's enduring voice. The modern world offers explanations that peel back the myth's layers, revealing truths rooted in history and psychology. Tuberculosis, that relentless plague of the North, with its wasting and persistent cough, mirrored the draining curse of the god-marked. It spread through families, a haunting parallel to tales of spectral hauntings. Medical records from 14th century Norway note cases where entire steadings sickened after a marked death, their symptoms pallor, weakness, breathlessness, echoing the saga's grip, a contagion mistaken for Odin's hunger. Natural phenomena fueled the myth's further thunderstorms, with their lightning strikes and rolling booms, shaped Thor's image, while volcanic eruptions in Iceland, like the 934 CE Elja event, inspired tales of Muspelheim's fire, their ash-darkened skies a glimpse of Ragnarok. Archaeological finds, such as hammer-shaped pendants from the Viking Age, suggest these were cultural responses to environmental threats, their craftsmanship a blend of art and survival. These discoveries propose the saga was born from real experiences, its legend a magnification of nature's raw power through the lens of awe and fear. Grief and conflict shaped the myth, silent forces that turned loss into legend. A warrior's death, marked by unresolved feuds or dishonor, left clans grappling with pain they could not name. The staking and burning, brutal as they were, became a catharsis, a violent severing of toxic ties that allowed survivors to heal. In 1300s Iceland, a widow named Thora burned her brother's heart after his bad death brought blight, her tears mixing with the ashes as she drank the mead draught, her strength returning as if the act purged her sorrow. Psychological studies from the 20th century, drawing on folklore, suggest these rituals were communal therapy, a way to externalize internal wounds, resentment toward a fallen leader, guilt over a lost kin transforming the marked into Draugr to be destroyed, their memory cleansed by fire. This human need to find meaning in suffering wove the saga into the fabric of Norse identity. Its tale is a reflection of the heart's resilience against the cold. Today, the Norse mythos thrives in culture, a phoenix risen from the ashes at its own end. Norway's tourism industry offers Viking trails, their paths lined with rune stones and longhouse replicas, drawing adventurers to trace Odin's journey. In Sweden, the annual midsummer celebrations blend Christian feasts with ancient blot rites, their bonfires a nod to Thor's might, attended by millions as of 2025. Films like Thor, Ragnarok in 2017 immortalized the saga, its vibrant battles a global spectacle that turned a local prophecy into a worldwide myth. Its echoes resonating in cinemas from Oslo to Seoul. Coastal villages preserve the tradition. Rowan branches hang on doorways in the Faroes, a ward against spirits, while Danish smiths forge Mjolnir pendants, their hands guided by heritage rather than faith. The saga has become a cultural cornerstone, less a source of terror, more a celebrated piece of identity that binds communities to their past. This legacy extends beyond entertainment, influencing art and scholarship with a depth that mirrors the northern landscape. In 1890, Richard Wagner's Ring Cycle brought the gods to opera stages, its music swelling with Valhalla's grandeur, inspiring painters like John Bauer to depict Yggdrasil's roots. Their canvases hung in galleries from Stockholm to Berlin. Modern authors, such as Neil Gaiman in his 2017 Norse Mythology, retell the tales with fresh voices, blending humor and horror to captivate new readers, a testament to the saga's enduring power. Museums across Scandinavia display Viking artifacts, swords, shields, runestones, alongside scientific exhibits on climate shifts. Their glass cases a bridge between myth and reality, while schools teach the Eddas as literature, shaping a new generation to revere the past. Yet, the saga carries a warning, a reminder of nature's unyielding force. Environmentalists point to climate change melting glaciers, rising seas as a modern Ragnarok, its tendrils reshaping the north, its wrath felt in disappearing fjords and stranded wildlife. In 2024, a Swedish study linked warmer winters to increased storm activity, their ferocity echoing ancient tales of Thor's battles, a scientific parallel that reignites old fears. Northern communities, now armed with satellites and drones, still whisper of lost travelers, their disappearances blamed on the god's mood, a phrase that bridges past and present. The saga, though tamed by reason, remains a symbol of nature's indifference, its prophecy a call to respect the wild. The modern legacy also reflects a shift in perception, from divine judgment to cultural pride. In 2023, a Finnish festival celebrated Ragnarok as a cycle of renewal, its image painted on banners that fluttered over a parade, its flames a sign of resilience against ecological loss. Artists in Iceland craft sculptures from lava rock, their forms twisting like Yggdrasil's branches, sold to tourists seeking a piece of the myth. This transformation turns the saga into a cultural ambassador, its story a lens through which to view humanity's relationship with the land, fearful awe giving way to stewardship, its battles silenced by conservation efforts. Yet, the old rites persist in quiet corners. Elders in the Lofoten Islands still burn juniper on solstice nights, their chants a link to ancestors who faced the god's wrath. Philosophically, the Norse saga speaks to universal themes, etched into the soul of the land like runes on stone. It reflects the hardship of life in the north blizzards that sank hopes, wars that claimed kin a narrative of survival against odds. The fear of dishonor, once blamed on the marked, mirrors modern anxieties about legacy, its hauntings a metaphor for unresolved guilt. The complexities of fate, resolved through ritual, highlight the human need to find purpose, to turn prophecy into meaning, and the profound, desperate need to face an end with courage, be it disease, conflict, or the world's twilight binds the saga to every culture that grapples with mortality. It is a whisper from the unquiet north, a dark and beautiful piece of folklore that tells us less about the gods that shape the skies and more about the strength that dwells in the human heart. As the aurora dances over the fjords, The Norse saga endures, a mirror of our past and a guide for our future. Thank you for wandering the Silverine sagas. Subscribe for more tales from the shadowed edges of the world, where the gods' whispers never cease.